Hey there, my friend. I'm Daniel, a relationship coach and a creator for the Soulful Relationships Experience program. And today I want to talk with you about how you can outsmart a narcissist in conversation. Because let's be honest, sometimes it's not possible to just stop the relationship you have with them and go on your own way and choose another partner. Sometimes the situation may be a little bit difficult and harder to resolve. So, how to outsmart them in a conversation? It's a really curious question, and I want to share with you a couple of points that you might find really, really valuable. So, that being the case, also, if you're new to the channel, actually, subscribe to it, comment down below, introduce yourself. Introduce yourself. I would love to get to know you. Because in this channel, I'll be doing everything in my power to help you experience the most conscious, uplifting, and meaningful relationships. And you can also click the bell button so that you can get notifications for every other video I create. That being the case, let's directly begin. So the first point is that basically you need to know your audience. You need to know who you speak with. You need to know who is on the other side of the conversation you'll be having with a narcissist. Because most of the time what happens is that we as empaths who attract narcissists, we are a little bit naive, right? So we almost pretend and we assume that the narcissists also possess really great and virtuous qualities and character traits. And I want you to know that here, your high empathy, your kind heart, all the compassion and love you carry, the decency and depth of understanding you have, and this attitude of just listening to others and understanding them won't give you an upper hand. In a conversation with a narcissist, this just won't happen. It won't give you an upper hand because narcissists, they lack the empathy, they lack the conscientious. So it's like it can be a little bit more challenging. And what happens is that most of the time we become a little bit naive and we try to project our own virtuous positive traits to the narcissist, and we assume that they're also like that, and we can have a really open, genuine, honest, heartfelt, like really decent and generally good conversation with them, and they can understand us the same way we do. But this most of the time is not the case, because my friend, truly what happens is that, and you know it, but sometimes we forget that the narcissist may be willing to go a long way to prove they're right, to prove their point, to hold their position. They might like manipulate, they might project, they might gaslight you, they might do things that you and I are not even capable of conceiving. So it's really important to remember that when you're having a conversation with a narcissist, because keeping that in the back of your head will help you not become naive in that moment and try to and assume that they're also good-hearted and kind-hearted like you, right? So this is really important to keep in mind. And also, something else that's important is that you do not take their behavior and attitude personally. Like, you don't take their blame, projection, open wounds personally, because like, why would you do that? Why would you take it personally? The reason they're showing you this attitude is just that they're showing you who they are, so that you can know better for yourself whether you want to have a long-term relationship with them, whether you tolerate this kind of behavior. So what they're saying about you doesn't speak so much about you, it speaks more about them. While on the other hand, it's also another thing is also interesting, because you tolerating this kind of manipulative and destructive narcissistic behavior, this speaks about your own belief systems and lack of self-love and self-respect. But their own attitude, it speaks more about them than it speaks about you. So you shouldn't really take it personally. And this will help you a lot, because then you know that it's not your responsibility to try to get your needs met by somebody who is not capable of even doing so, right? So this is really important to keep in mind. um, but we all know that it's not really possible to completely limit our exposure to narcissists when we've had a like a long-lasting relationship with them. And some of the time, sometimes the situation just doesn't allow that. So what can we do? Like, what is the other strategy we can use to yeah, to just win in a conversation with a narcissist? Well, the other thing we can do is basically something that I shared also in a previous video, but it's called the gray rock method. This is like a really simple thing you can try when you're speaking with narcissists, that you just decide to not engage, to not be interested, to be absolutely uninterested, uninteresting, to put your ego aside, to let go of that attachment to feeling, to being validated, to being heard, to being respected and appreciated, because you understand that when you're speaking with a narcissist, when you know your audience, right? This is the first thing. So when you know your audience, you know that sometimes they're not even capable of respecting and appreciating and hearing you out. So knowing that this is true, it's so much easier if you let go of your attachment to needing to be right, to needing to get your needs met, and just be there and listen attentively, but not responding so much. It's like just using one word responses. It's like whatever they say when they're like, when they're triggered, because when they're triggered, again, they'll try to project their wounds on you, they'll try to gaslight you, they'll try to make you believe that your feelings and your perception about the situations are not valid and you're being crazy. So in moments like that, it's so easy if you just have like something like, say something like, oh, okay, I hear you, okay, thank you. So just being uninterested. But again, sometimes this is not as easy. This is basically everything you can do, but sometimes this is not as easy. And ultimately, it's like this is the short route to outsmarting them in a conversation, because you are giving them absolutely nothing to plug into, and you're not defending. You decide to not defend yourself, to not protect yourself, to not explain, to not justify yourself. You're just being like a gray rock. It's almost an analogy, but you can imagine a gray rock and just stay like one. So whatever they are saying to try to create an emotional reaction from you, try to get some emotional energy from you, try to trigger you, you just act as being uninterested. Don't engage. Don't be like, just don't respond. And I know this is easier said than done, so it requires a little bit of practice. But one of the things that I really like to do, and like when I'm working with somebody personally, one of the practices that I highly encourage them to develop is that in moments like that, when somebody is intentionally trying to trigger you, when a narcissist is intentionally trying to trigger you, well, one of the practices you can try to be a gray rock is to just withdraw all your awareness, draw all your attention in the insides of your body, in your sensations, in your feelings. And so you're not thinking a lot. You're not trying to project, you're not trying to defend yourself, to justify, to prove something. No, you're just feeling. And by feeling, then it becomes a little bit easier to just say something like, okay, oh, thank you, I see. Okay, this speaks more about you than it speaks about myself. It makes sense, right? This is the second thing you can do to outsmart a narcissist. And then basically another thing is that you refuse to play. You decide to not play. And this can be a little bit hard again, but it's basically accepting the fact that you love yourself enough, you accept and you respect yourself enough to be willing and able to put your ego aside and give up the need to be right, because they're the ones that they want to be right, right? And so when they want to be right, they want to get an emotional reaction from you so that they can use that information to prove and hold their position, and so that they make you wrong. And when you're also wanting to be right, you're playing their game. So the thing here is to just refuse to play. Give up your need to be right. Give up the willingness to prove anything. Give up and put aside your ego. And that's again connected to the gray rock method, but it's looking at it a little deeper. So have enough self-love and self-respect for yourself the way you are, accepting the fact that you don't need them their validation, their approval. You don't need to be hurt by them to love yourself, to accept yourself, to validate yourself. You can just be there for yourself. You can just stay with your feelings, stay safe and secure in your body. And this is so helpful, my friend. It's so helpful to act uninterested in moments like that. Which gets me to the last point, what was thing you can try, which is basically being smart. If you want to outsmart a narcissist in conversation, well, okay, now you understand that if you know who they are, if you understand that they don't have such a high empathy, they don't have a kind heart, they don't have all the love and compassion you carry, and they're mostly self-centered, so you cannot expect them to behave in the same way. You cannot expect them to be genuine and honest. And by letting go of such kind of expectations, you're not being naive. Then you also have the gray rock method, and then you refuse to play. But ultimately, if you're smart, this is like when you just enter in a relationship with somebody and you see that they have some destructive narcissistic traits and qualities in their character. So you are being smart, and you decide to do not give a lot of unnecessary information. Don't share a lot of your past mistakes, fears, unless they're willing to be vulnerable. You don't do that because you understand that, well, they will use that against you. They take that, they'll hold what you share with them genuinely and vulnerably. They'll take it and use it as ammunition against you when they want to prove their position and make themselves and hold the position of them being right. So, and they will use it in the most out of context and distorted way. So when you get in conflict and when they're trying to draw your energy, they will use all that you have shared, all your past mistakes, all your fears, basically all the unnecessary information that you have shared with them. They'll use all these cards against you. So that's why the worst thing you can do to outsmart a narcissist in conversation, and it's something you can embody for the long term. It's something you can integrate within yourself, to just play it a little bit more mysterious. Not share as much when you're just getting to know somebody. Like, hold your cards close to chest, because you know that, again, information for them is ammunition, and they will use it out of context in distorted ways to prove their points, and you might have already experienced that. So knowing that this is the case, when you get to know somebody and when you're just meeting them, do not be so excited to be so open and vulnerable with them, unless you understand that they also have a vulnerability as and like honesty and transparency as a high standard for themselves and as high value, which is a lot easier when you connect with your boundaries and with your personal needs and with the gifts that you're offering and giving to others in your relationships. Because you're clear with those, then when you just get to know somebody, you also want to get to know what are their needs, what are their boundaries, what are their gifts, before you start opening yourself so fast and like oversharing and giving unnecessary information. That's why at this stage I suggest you check out, in the description below you can find the 3 questions healthy boundaries framework. It's basically a 3-page long file you can read through, a document you can read through, which guides you through a process, a simple process which you can use to connect with your own boundaries. And once you do that, it's so much easier when you get to know other people you're interested in, to also see what are their needs, boundaries, and gifts they can offer to the table before you open yourself as much. So yeah, ultimately, what I'm suggesting here is that you try to be more mysterious, right? So you're not oversharing. You do not naively assume and expect everyone to be as good-hearted, as kind-hearted, as loving, as compassionate as you are, as decent as you are. And you know that there are some people who, like, consciously, some of them consciously, some of them unconsciously, but have ill intent. They have an intent which is not in your own greatest benefit. And knowing this, then it becomes easy. Like, you become responsible for not sharing as much. So the bottom line is that, oh, and another thing I wanted to share, and I have written in my notes, is that, well, you don't try to save them, you don't try to help them, because I know how attached we are as empaths sometimes to help others and to save them. But when a narcissist who is really hurt, like most narcissists, they have so deep, really deep wounds inside of them. And so when you try to save them and when you try to help them and they are not willing and open to take responsibility for their own selves, and you do that for themselves, what you do is that you just enter in a dependent relationship with them, codependent, in which you're just giving and they're just receiving, and then you become and then they're giving you a little bit of validation from time to time to not lose you, but it's not genuine. They do it just to not lose you, right? So yeah, the last thing you can remember if you want to outsmart a narcissist in a conversation you're having with them, if you cannot just let them go and if you cannot just like go no contact, which is another thing you can try if you want to just stop your relationship with them. But if that's not possible at this stage in this situation, well, do not try to save them, do not try to help them as much unless they're open to doing the inner work for themselves, right? So because if you do that, well, it's like you can find yourself in a situation in which you're just giving and then giving a little bit more and a little bit more and a little bit more, and you receive nothing in return. And what happens when you get into a situation like that? Well, you become dependent on them. You have expectations. You hope that they'll change. You try to compromise yourself to make them change, right? But it never works. So don't do that, my friend. And ultimately, the bottom line of all this is that you, by applying these three things that I suggested, these three main points that I suggested, so that you can outsmart them in a conversation, well, the bottom line is that you become emotionally detached. You become detached from them. You don't expect as much of them. You see them for who they are. You do not project your virtuous qualities on them. You see them for who they are. You listen more than you share, right? So you're detached. You do not become as attached and needy for you to ensure the fact that you remain in a relationship with them, because why would you want to be in a relationship with somebody who doesn't respect and care for you, right? It's an interesting question we can ask ourselves. So yeah, ultimately the bottom line is that you become emotionally and spiritually and intellectually detached. Spiritually, it's like the reason you're attracted to one another is so that you can learn from one another ultimately. But yeah, as much as possible, and I know this is easier said than done, but as much as possible, the bottom line is that you become emotionally detached. And so, my friend, this was everything I wanted to share in this video. Again, now, if you're new to the channel, and I trust you found this video to be helpful. So if this is the case, you can like it, comment down below, subscribe to the channel if you're new to it. And now I also want to share and invite you, share that there are a couple of spots open for one-on-one personal conversations, personal consultations that I do every week. I do like 5 consultations. I limit myself to doing 5 one-on-one consultations with people in which we can look deeply at your specific situation right now, specific relationship situation, to see exactly what we can do so that you don't experience any narcissistic and abusive and toxic and codependent relationships any longer. So if this is something important for you, if you want to experience, to get free, to free yourself of codependency and toxicity within the next 3 to 4 months, the way you can schedule that free consultation is by checking out the free training you can also access below, in which you understand what are the 3 phases of inner work that you pass through until you surround yourself by only conscious, uplifting, and meaningful relationships. And when you go through that training, then you'll see a calendar where you can schedule your free consultation, and there are a couple of questions for you to answer. But yeah, then we can connect one-on-one and talk about how we can apply this process, these 3 phases I talk about in the training. So if they relate to you, if you resonate with them and you want to see how we can apply them together in your life, this is the way you can schedule your free discovery call, your free consultation. And there are a couple of more spots. So that being the case, my friend, I want to thank you so much for watching this video. I want to thank you so much for staying with me. I trust you liked it and you found it helpful. Comment down below, let me know what is your situation and experience with narcissists. And I would love to see you around to the channel. Thank you so much for watching. I love you, my friend. Bye bye for now.